Gary Houston,
Hi,
welcome
thank you. Welcome.
to the Oregon
Yourself.
Music Hall of Fame. Congratulations on being inducted as a high-profile industry guy. Those are weighty words. How does that feel to be called a high-profile industry guy?
I guess it's flattering, kind of embarrassing. There are those people that can, be on stage and feel totally comfortable. And then there are the rest of us that, would much rather be raking leaves right now or something like that.
Well, glad for the opportunity to shine a light on what you do. You are, as it's been said, the face of the Waterfront Blues Festival. Unintentional, maybe, but here you are. And I think it's more accurate to say that your hands are what creates the beauty.
Well,
Not your face. Well, your face, because your eye. You have to have eyes to see what you're drawing.
well, it kind of helps, but
Yeah.
I think there are some of us that enjoy working with our hands.
And by the way, I have to say that Oregon Music Hall of Fame posters are your
Yes.
creation
Yeah,
as
we've
well.
done those also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But before you got into the business of creating concert posters, now what was life like, and what were you doing? Always creating art, or?
I've been a graphic designer for before that, before the poster thing. Always been a music junkie, so the poster thing just kind of happened. It wasn't by design. It just
Kind of evolved.
it did. It was something where, if we do this, we can go see shows for free. And which sounds kind of sleazy, but at the same time, I mean, it's a fact of life, and I think that's how a lot of us kind of got into doing. Because like there are people in every large city, and then some not so large cities that kind of do this thing where we all make posters and whatnot, and we're all music junkies. And
Where are you originally from?
Wichita, Kansas.
Wichita, Kansas. Even in Kansas, they had that kind of thing going on.
Oh yeah, I mean,
Didn't
I
have to
worked
be
for a promoter back when I was in high school.
Got the taste.
So I mean, I got to see Fleetwood Mac when they were a real band, many times. I mean, at least once a year. I mean, we're talking the Peter Green era.
Right, which is a
Yeah.
great era.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that for fans of not to digress, but I totally understand what you mean, because the Peter Green era was definitely an era for Fleetwood Mac.
That's when they were,
Yeah, they were very different. One of your first works was designing a poster for a Grateful Dead appearance, and after that, the rest seems like history. You never turned back. You moved to Oregon in the early 80s. Poster work for you began when?
Well, I went through a really kind of a bad divorce and got a little self-destructive and felt the tap on the shoulder that said, there are other ways you can work around this, and it turned out to be constructive rather than destructive, and all the pieces of whatever, if you want to call it a puzzle or what have you, kind of fell into place, if that makes any kind of sense. But it was instead taking that angst and working it out and making something rather than maybe dying.
You're well known for doing uncommissioned posters, simply because so and so is coming to town and you're going to make one.
Yeah.
But
I don't have time to do that kind of stuff anymore.
Because you have a serious business now. Voodoo Cat Box is what you call your place that you create. How did you come by that name? I love it. Voodoo Cat Box.
It was a thing where there used to be a magazine in town called Crap Hound, and they dealt with a lot of clip art and fonts and typefaces and whatnot. And we had done a font. And Sean Tegerace, who put this thing together, said, what do you want to call this font? And it just came out. It was like, just call it Voodoo Cat Box. And it was one of those things where, wait a minute, we got to, use it for that, but yeah, I'm definitely going to use that for something else. So yeah, and it wasn't, there was no thought or anything.
That's how those brilliant things come about.
It
sometimes.
and it just kind of, it was, because I think, a lot of us are, we're just pretty much smart asses most of the time. And this just, it just kind of came out and
here it still is.
And I don't like cats. I mean, I'm not a cat fan or anything like that. But I like the visual that it kind of brings up, mentally or, so.
So what's the source of inspiration for your posters after all this time? It still seems to be so fresh for you.
It's everything. I mean, it used to be if you studied, you went to Rome or you went to New York or you went to Paris. We live in an era or, an age where we have the whole world right in our laps. And moving here from the Midwest, I was always, intoxicated, I guess, by the Plains Indian work. And then moving out here and seeing the Northwest Coast work, where it's so precise and so abstract. So that's another thing that I really like that stuff. And I figure I could take a lifetime to learn and still never figure it out.
Favorite part of creating?
Favorite parts? It's weird because I do a lot of scratchboard work.
And define that for us.
It's where you've got a surface that's black. So a lot of the blues festival stuff is done that way. So and think of it kind of like a poor man's woodcut or linoleum
and it's paint.
cut.
Is it paint or linoleum?
No, it's like where you have black, and so you're taking away rather than adding. So I'm scratching this black to reveal a white. The thing is that in illustration, normally you work larger and then reduce it down so everything tightens up. This is backwards in that I work smaller and then that gets enlarged and it takes on that wood block or linoleum cut ambience.
Anything left to do that may still be a kernel in your mind?
The amazing thing is that, and the surprise is that it's great not to plan. I like those times when you have something to do, but you don't sweat it. Because if you work at it, you can kind of suck all the energy out of it. But I like those times where you're driving and you see something out of your periphery and it triggers something, a mechanism, and some of us have really shallow brain pans. So, but this thing gets triggered and all of a sudden, in like say a drive home from the studio, you've got the whole thing figured out. And that's easier than, trying to work it or overwork it or think too hard about it. So there's a little bit of magic or a little bit of, that kind of thing that goes on.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of magic in creating art.
Oh, yeah.
And Gary.
And then you look at everybody else's work and think oh, geez, I wish I could, do, work like those folks.
I just looked at your name again and I thought, Houston? Because it's Houston in New York.
In New York, yeah. There's a Houston
but you're
Street.
Houston. Yeah,
I'm Houston.
Well, Gary Houston, it's been a pleasure getting to know
Thank
you. As a high-profile industry guy. How are you feeling about that? Was it a shocker?
I think there are some of us that just we like being behind, the curtain and working, because some of us are workaholics. But to call attention is kind of
not in your wheelhouse.
A little disconcerting.
Well, we'll call attention to you for the next couple of weeks if you don't mind.
Okay. Well, you can do anything you want to because it's what you guys do. But it's at the same time I think some of us are really fortunate that because of happenstance or the way the cards are dealt or however you want to look at it, grace of God. We get to, the joke is I get to go to adult romper room every day, but it's got lots of stress. There are days when, I'd really love to fire myself, but, you have to keep feeding the monster.
Yeah. Gary Houston, you've been dealt a great.
Oh, yeah.
card.
And I don't take it for granted.
It's been a pleasure meeting you.
Cool. Well, thank you.